Okay, now legal representation is hardly thought to be a guarantee for less privileged people. Many reports have suggested that accused persons are barely provided with legal aid when they are arrested, charged, and prosecuted by the state. Now, in several of our police cells, a good number of persons of interest are held in police custody long beyond the constitutional 48 hours when they must be brought to court for the very first time. Now, the legal aid scheme, which was established in 1997, was to bring relief to most of these people caught up in such circumstances. Now, after 17 years, has the board lived up to its mandate? I have with me in the studio Mr. Alhassan Yahaya Seni, who is the director of the scheme. Thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
All right. Now, has the scheme been a success? Can you say that it's a success story?
I wouldn't say categorically that it has been a success, but it could have been a lot worse if the scheme had not been there. Because the scheme was set up not really in 1997, it was set up 10 years earlier. The first law establishing the legal aid scheme was in 1987 under the PNDC. And you will recall that was soon after the several laws trying to ensure that justice came down to the underprivileged. We had the PNDC Law 111, which sought to ensure that the widows and other and underprivileged children had access to the estate of their deceased parents. We had the customary leaders accountability laws and things like that, in order to ensure that people actually, those laws actually were beneficial to those for whom it was made. Legal aid scheme was established sometime in 1987 by PNDC law. But what has had, the difficulty that it has had over the years has been, it was expected to be operated on the goodwill of members of the bar. So the first legal aid scheme was actually operated between the then Chief Justice, Justice Sowa, who went around the country in 1989 to establish the legal aid committees around the country, and also assigned the then director of the law school the responsibility of hosting the secretariat of the legal aid scheme. So from 1988 up to 1995, the legal aid scheme was operated under the auspices of the law school in Accra and the regional administrative officers of the judicial service in the regions. So it was in 1995 that the scheme was removed from the judicial service and made an organization of its own with a new director there. Then by that time the constitution had come into force and had made some provisions for legal aid delivery and charged Parliament with making a law to regulate it. The law under the Constitution was then made in 1997, replacing the 1987 PNDC law. And since then, the enthusiasm with which the bar had taken it in the 80s waned, because one, the numbers of applicants for legal aid kept increasing, the number of lawyers were not increasing to keep up pace, the amount of income to the lawyers, apparently, according to them, was not keeping pace with what time they could spare to give to the pro bono work that they were doing for the legal aid scheme.